All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Diesel Dog Garage video. Out here in the garage tonight, burning a little bit of the midnight oil. What we got going on is a brake caliper locking up on the right rear of my wife's 2013 Ford Explorer. A couple of different ways you can diagnose this. You can either jack up all the wheels and spin them and see if you have one hanging up, or you can just let her go for a good drive. Wait till she comes back. Check to see how much smoke fills up your house and your garage, and then go out and make sure the house isn't on fire and make sure the car's still intact and not burned down. Anyways, definitely pinpoint it to the right rear via the smoke billowing out. Surprisingly, the rotor doesn't look like it got too hot. What I'm gonna do tonight is I'm just gonna pull the brakes apart. I have a caliper just in case I actually need the caliper, but it's possible that the slides could be jammed up. I figured I'd do a video on how to really get in there, diagnose, to see what kind of brake components you need if you have the same issue on your vehicle. Ooh. A little bit of Grandpappy's lemonade, keep the night going. Woo. Tell you what, just getting down here, I could really smell the brakes. Got hot. I'm kind of wishing I would have got a set of pads. We'll see what we got going on. So now we got our wheel off, we can really get a good look at everything we got going on here. And there might be a little bit of discoloration on the rotor after all, a little bluish. I don't feel any grooves. I don't really feel a lip. Definitely not the best rotor, but I think it'll get by for now. If we experience any kind of warpage or anything, then obviously we'll know that this is probably the one that needs to get changed. We'll do a pair. Now if we spin this now, it's freed up. So this happens a lot. People think their brakes are locked up. They drop it off to the shop, it sits overnight. You pull it in the morning, you can't find a brake locking up. What happens is if this caliper is not moving, you've got your brake pads along your rotor, caliper on this side, not letting it release, not doing anything, just holding it fixed. What happens to the metal when it gets hot? It expands. So as your rotor in the middle gets hot, as your shoes get hot, everything's expanding. The longer you drive, the more it all squishes in together. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter. That's what causes your brake ultimately to start smoking and get hot enough to where it'll fill up your garage with smoke. So then you park it, you say, oh man, I need to check that out in the morning. You go out, all of a sudden it's working again. Oh man, must have been a fluke. I'll just keep driving it. So obviously it's not gonna get any better. Pull the caliper off and we'll see exactly what is hanging up on this thing. Try to push it in. If it's frozen up, then we pretty much know it's a caliper. It is always a good idea to assume that your hose could be bad too, but nowadays it seems like I can't even tell you the last time I actually had a bad hose. Sometimes the insides of them can fold over like a flap where you hit your brake pressure, it opens up, and then as you let off, it folds back and your fluid has nowhere to go. It's been a long time since I've seen that. The only thing I would recommend is if your brakes got hot enough to where you see extreme discoloration, especially like if your caliper, your bracket and everything look charred or discolored, then you definitely want to replace your hose, because if the hose got hot, it could have melted inside there. I think we caught this in time to where it didn't do really any major damage. Still gonna get a look at the shoes and make sure those look all right. But mainly I think we're gonna be looking at either the caliper frozen up or the actual slide part where the calipers move in and out frozen up. In which case, may try to free them up and return the caliper, or just maybe throw it on anyways for good measure. It's like we're gonna have two 13mm bolts holding this one on. Here's what I'm talking about with these slides here. This is what allows your caliper to move in and out and keep moving in as your brake pads wear. That all slowly moves in. This has all got to be freed up. That's a big misdiagnosis, is people not looking at your slides. They can be frozen up. Someone puts a caliper on, all of a sudden they run into issues because these things are not sliding and they're frozen up. Right here's a pretty good indication that this caliper is junk. Not sure if you can see, but there's little indentions on each side of this piston right here. And those should actually be up here and down here. And this piston is turned on itself. And if you get a look at the boot, I mean, everything's just dried up. To me, it's pretty clear this thing just needs to be replaced. This is a little different than most people might see on their own vehicles. This style piston has to be turned in with a special tool or a little bit of elbow pressure and a channel locks. You can get them in sometimes, but I got a special tool that locks into those indentions and turns it down into itself. But otherwise, the normal style caliper would just be a piston you got to push in. You'll be pushing against brake fluid pressure, but if they're not frozen, you can get them in with the channel locks. I'm gonna say we're putting a caliper on it tonight. I was not anticipating this whole conglomeration on top of here, but you know, that's the way it goes. I should mention that if you did wanna double check just to make sure that your hose was good, if you check your caliper, you can't push it in, it's frozen, pop your bleeder loose. This one will be on top, this is your bleeder. Pop that loose and then try to push it in. And if you're able to push the caliper in after that and it just squirts out the bleeder, then you actually might have a hose that is kinking open itself in the inside. But if you pop that bleeder and you still can't push that caliper in, then you know for sure then your caliper's bad. Everyone's got different ways of doing things. This is just kind of how I do things, how I've learned to go about this particular problem. I'll tell you what, whoever designed this, emergency brake system, just not a huge fan. So we're gonna take the hose off here, get our new caliper set up. Go ahead and thread the new one on, like so. You can see a little bit better what I'm talking about on the new caliper here. You see those indentions, basically straight up and down. And if you remember on the old one, they were to our left and right. So they're supposed to be up and down like that. That's one thing you really need to look for. Especially if you're reusing, if you're just doing a brake job and reusing calipers this style. As you turn it in, you've got to make sure where you stop once you get in is you've got your indentions up and down, or you're going to run into major issues. Yeah. Oh. Woo. Check it out, guys, we got a caliper on there. Next thing I do right away is just crack the bleeder. This is a 10mm. Crack that bleeder and wait for it to start spitting out of there. You'll get a couple bubbles and you just let it gravity bleed for a little bit. Let the caliper fill up with fluid and then we'll start the bleeding process. What I like to do, it's not mandatory, but I like to get a little topper off of Grandpappy's lemonade while I'm waiting for that to bleed. Definitely always a good idea to check your brake fluid reservoir, make sure it's full before you start bleeding, and if you get too low then you may end up sucking air through the whole system. So I went ahead and topped it off with the last remaining little bit of brake fluid I have. Hopefully it's good and that's enough, should be enough for one brake. Go ahead and toss that. Perfect. Once that starts bubbling over there, we'll close the bleeder, hop up in the driver's seat, and I'll show you what I do here. Looks like we got some pretty good fluid coming out of the bleeder now, so go ahead and close that off. Now we're gonna hop in the driver's seat, and you're gonna need something that's gonna hold the brake pedal down. I use a hood prop. A lot of people probably don't have one of these, but you can use a 2x4, set of bicycle handlebars, anything that's gonna, an umbrella, anything that's gonna fit in there. You're gonna push the pedal down, wedge it into the pedal to hold it down to the floor, hook it up to the seat, then you can come back and close the bleeder. But I'll show you how to do it. Now that you have fluid back to the bleeder, go ahead and give your pedal a couple pumps here. Re-crack the bleeder. And with the bleeder open, slowly depress the brake pedal. You're gonna feel it go all the way to the floor. I can hear the fluid coming out. Do it slow so you don't make a huge mess. I'm down. I'm gonna take my prop, I'm gonna wedge it in between my pedal and the seat. It's gonna hold it down to the floor so when I let go, it doesn't suck air back through. Good. And then we're gonna close our bleeder back up before we let up on the brake pedal. That keeps it from sucking any more air in. Now you can pull this back out, and we'll go ahead and do it a couple more times. Oh. So there you have it, guys. I mean, pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy, nothing to really be afraid about. Looking for a drive, everything's good. You would be able to feel some heat radiating off this thing if it was still locked up. I can still smell the brakes a little bit, smell a little burnt to me. I think I may end up ordering a set of pads and put them on there. But this is gonna get her by for now. She needs the car, so. But like I said, just watch out for more discoloration on anything if it got too hot. I mean, it got hot with her just going uptown and back, so it's not like she went real far. Could have been a lot worse. I think everything's gonna be good with just the caliper on there and maybe some pads. Anyways, guys, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, follow along on the other stuff I do on this channel. And, I think it's Betty Bye time for me, boys. Back out on the turbo diesels tomorrow. Yep.